cookers that you guys include in the bleach kits are pretty central to the process. I'm sure a number of us have probably seen bent spoons that were used as cookers. And as far as being safe, it's not so great if a person is using the same bent spoon over and over again. Particularly that the cooker is used not only to cook the drug, but to mix the drug with water. And as you guys know, that we have two types of cookers. We've got our gold cookers, we've got our silver cookers. Any thought as to why the two, or the difference between them?
One's Pepsi, one's Coke.
That's right.
One cooks, it's thinner, so it would cook faster.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay.
So if I am cooking my dope in an abandoned building or in one of the porta-johns, or you might see near a construction site, I need my drugs to be cooked fast, and I need to be able to access it and get out of there before someone comes along and interrupts me. So this cooks faster. It may not cook as evenly, but it certainly cooks faster. With the gold cooker, because it's heavier and thicker, the drug will cook more evenly, and I'll be able to set up better. So this is really better for someone who is living on their own, has a secure place to set up. Now, I don't have any right now, but as far as a surface would be concerned, the best surface the person might want to inject on would be a clean surface. If they can't actually clean it, they want to use newspaper. Why newspaper? The ink from the newspaper actually acts in some ways as an antibacterial. It'll keep the area temporarily free of some microbials. So gold or silver, the person has their cookers. And we got a lot of supplies from this.
Yes, I did.
My sleeve. The person is going to want to clean off. They want to clean off the area that they're going to inject. The best area to keep the veins as healthy as possible to go with the largest veins. They're not too close to the heart or brain, and so that's going to be the antecubital area. It's the area opposite to the elbow. Okay, but we only have two elbows, and over many years of use, these areas, the veins in these areas are going to be worn. Some veins are going to collapse. There's going to be scarring, what we see as tracks, and so the person is going to have to rotate where they inject. But let's say that my antecubital area is pretty good and pretty ready. The person is going to want to open the wipe, and they would wipe. They wouldn't necessarily want to go over the same area twice because you're actually bringing bacteria back to the same spot. They can wipe in one direction. They can wipe starting a small circle and go out. But this is to clean off the area, to clean off the skin. So they've cleaned off the skin, they've got the drug, but the drug isn't ready to be used yet. They want to cook the drug. Inside the cooker, they're going to use sterile water. If they don't have access to sterile water, even though we supply it, they may want to get water that's running. If they are in a bathroom, they want to get water from the toilet, not the bowl, but the tank. They want to get fresh water, and they want to mix. They want to mix the drug. Folks often use the tip of the syringe, which does make the syringe slightly dull. Even touching a gentle grazing will begin to dull a syringe. But they're going to cook it with a lighter, some kind of flame, and when the drug is ready, they're going to pull it up through a bit of cotton. The cotton is going to act as a filter. So even though this has lots of cotton in it, they're only going to use one or two, and I'm going to open this needle, but I'll make sure that it stays with me. They're going to want to pull up with a piece of cotton. They're going to pull up the cooked drug through the cotton. It's going to trap any impurities, because the person doesn't want to inject that into their veins. They just want to get the drug. And when they inject into their vein, to make sure it's a vein, not an artery, they're going to pull back a little bit. If they see a hint of purplish red, they know they've got a vein and not an artery. An artery will be bright red, and it's going to push back on the plunger. They don't want that. So they'll see a little blood, and they'll know that they're in a vein. And they're going to depress the plunger and inject the drug. Before they get to the injection process, I almost forgot, they're going to want to use a tourniquet. Lots of folks, particularly if they're lighter skin, it's very easy for them to find their veins. But it's always important to use a tourniquet because that will bring the vein to the surface. So will push-ups and drinking lots of water and staying relatively healthy. It'll keep the veins healthy and close to the surface. So they'll use the tourniquet, the vein will come up, they'll inject, they'll remove the tourniquet, and then they will stop any particular bleeding with a gauze pad, and then cover up the wound with a Band-Aid. And this is the process that happens over and over so many times that a person may be able to do all of that in 30 seconds. Right? Once the drug is cooked, from the time that it's cooked to the time that it's in their arm and they're on their way, maybe 30 seconds. Particularly if the person doesn't have the luxury of time and space. What happens when this needle is the only one you've got? What happens when this needle isn't yours? It's one that you borrowed from someone else. A friend, a lover, someone who you've been injecting with for a long time, or someone that you just met. The question of whether or not to inject may be the first question, but once the decision's been made, I'm going to inject, I'm going to reuse this needle, then the next question will be, how do I reuse this needle as safe as possible? We already know that it's not safe to reuse this needle. Even if we had never shared it, even if this was ours, as I mentioned, the minute that a needle touches a surface, it's already begun to dull. All right? And we may not be able to see it, but barbs of the needle can come off and get stuck inside someone. It can pull parts of the cotton, and if we inject cotton, we're at risk of something called endocarditis. It means that the sac that's around the heart becomes infected. That can lead to sepsis. It can lead to a whole host of medical issues. But there is that moment where a person may need to reuse either their own needle or a different needle. And if it gets to that unfortunate point, the work that you guys do can really make the difference to whether or not a person is facing an HIV infection or how much risk they are to contracting hepatitis C. Because what we've learned in the past 30 years of this particular epidemic and many years of the hepatitis C epidemic is that bleach works. Bleach will kill HIV. You know, and in doing presentations with young people, I often get the question, well, how come we can't just inject bleach into folks with HIV and solve the whole problem? And unfortunately, it will do to us what it does to HIV in large amounts. But within the needle, which is sometimes airtight, the use of bleach and clean water can kill HIV so that this needle, which is still dangerous because there may be other the things that survive the bleaching process, those will be injected, but it will hopefully kill HIV. And so the process to bleach a set would involve both water and the bleach. So the water that you pack, the person would pull up water, and they would shake the needle. And the purpose of shaking the water first is to loosen any bits of blood that might be in there, loosen any bits of old drug that might be in the needle, and then the person is going to squirt it out, certainly not in their water source, on the ground, in the toilet, in the sink, where have you. Then they want to pull up the bleach. And they want to pull up the bleach and they want to shake it again about 30 seconds to kill whatever's inside. They want to inject that water out and they want to repeat that process 2 more times. So a total of 3 times bleaching that set. But then, given the prohibition against bleach inside the body, they've got another packet of water where they're going to pull up and then make sure that they've got all that bleach out of the syringe. So if they're pulling up, 3 times with water, and 3 times with bleach, and 3 times with water, at 30 seconds apiece, it's a lot of time. That's enough time for the person at McDonald's to be, what are you doing in there? That's enough time for someone to actually want to use the Porta-John because they've got to go. But if the person has enough time, and the person is aware of the dangers associated with reusing a needle, then that's just enough time to bleach a set, and then another set of 30 seconds to tie off, to clean up, to inject their drugs. We obviously give out brand new needles to every participant that we encounter. And our hope is that no one would ever need to bleach a set because they would be able to use one needle once and then dispose of it properly, so that they can bring it back to us, so that if they can't get it back to us, they mark it in a biohazard container with the regular garbage, not recyclables, so that sanitation workers aren't injured. But we know that those are ideals, and we know that sometimes life comes into play. And we want people to have access to these bleach kits. That way, if they can't get back to our agency when it's late, if they try to access an ESAP program, which is Expanded Syringe Availability Program, at a pharmacy, at a participating pharmacy, if wherein in 1997 the law was passed so that a person who's 18 years old or older can purchase up to 10 syringes, no questions asked. Well, we know that doesn't always happen, particularly in small communities where your pharmacist is the same pharmacist that your parents go to get their prescriptions from. They may say, well, what do you need needles for? And so a person may opt not to go to a pharmacy. What if it's the middle of the night? And the outreach team, it's past 11 p.m., it's past midnight, if it's summer, and they can't go to where the outreach teams are out on foot, then they may have no choice. And so the bleach kits that you so lovingly put together in community, that's where the life-saving happens. Now, we know that bleach does not necessarily always kill hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is a smaller virus. It is 10 times more infectious than HIV, and very little is known about it, even though it has been around longer than HIV. For a long time, it was referred to as hepatitis non-A, non-B. But as we continue to get the information out there about hepatitis C, the best thing that we can do at this point, within the context of someone possibly reusing a syringe, is still that bleach. If, of course, they can't get a brand new syringe. But this process that we share with our participants when they enroll in our syringe exchange program is about them bringing back needles and never using the same needle twice, and then followed immediately by, if you must, reuse a needle. Hopefully it's yours and yours alone, and you never have to share. But if you absolutely have to share, then you've got the tools at hand to reduce your risk of contracting HIV, certainly contracting HIV, but also you're reducing your risk of hepatitis C infection. And, what Sadat has said, and what many at our agency really believe, syringe exchange is about the needle and about, keeping folks safe, but it's also an engagement tool. If you think of your deepest, darkest secret, we've all got them, right? And the first time you meet someone, you can share your deepest, darkest secret. The person very quickly gets to know you, because what other barriers are there? If someone accepts you as an entire person, even though they know this part of you that you would not necessarily readily share with a stranger, and they accept you, and they embrace you, and they say, here are the tools that I'm going to give to you, but I also want to have a conversation with you. I let our interns know. A vending machine could give out bleach kits and syringes. They could swipe their syringe exchange card, and the process would be completed in a flash. But what would be missing is that engagement process, that conversation. So as much as needles are intricate to the process of saving a life, the life-saving happens in the conversation.